Okay, I'm here with Mike Martin, Salesforce MVP. What else can I say about you? Beer enthusiast,
Beer enthusiast, Lego
Lego enthusiast.
enthusiast.
Yes.
Yep, yep,
Thank you so much for joining me. I know
of
you're a
course.
busy guy. A lot of people know you. I've known you for a long time, right? I knew you
Yeah.
back in the early Aperio days. Um, I don't really know your full story of how you became a consultant. How did you get into consulting?
Yeah, a little bit roundabout. I don't know how far back you want to go. I was born in 1982. No. So, coming out of college, had a degree in computer engineering, learned very quickly, didn't want to sit in a lab, design chips. Took a brief stint into process engineering for a logistics company and found very quickly that I missed doing technology. Briefly joined the IT department there, but learned that I wanted to do technology at a technology company. So that had me searching for roles where I could interact with people, but also do technology types of stuff. Found a sales engineering role at a small software company here in Indianapolis, where I live. And that company hired me to be a sales engineer. It was great. It was in financial services industry. Hey, I knew I had some to learn, but was excited to kind of be in that mix of people and technology. On day one, I walked in and the nice folks said, "Hey, our Salesforce administrator is leaving. You're going to do this. Figure it out." And this was back in 2008. Never heard of Salesforce. Didn't know what it was, but was excited for the challenge. So that 2 year stint at that software company, over half of my job involved working with Salesforce. Towards the end of that stint, we were working on a project where we were bringing three different divisions of that firm together. They all had each individual Salesforce instances. And a fun little trick with that project was two of those instances had been together at one point prior to my joining the firm. So we were bringing them back together again. So that was a great consulting project, plenty of stories from that. So in that, I knew that I needed help. I went out and interviewed a number of different consulting partners and ended up hiring a firm, regional firm out of Louisville, Kentucky, a couple of hours from where I sit, called InfoWelders. And InfoWelders was started by a former Salesforce employee who had very good connections within the Salesforce ecosystem, and then also had great connections with some really smart data folks. And so InfoWelders was a partner, regionally focused on doing really cool Salesforce stuff. Throughout the project where I hired them, got to know and learn that, hey, I think this Salesforce thing is what I want to do. I saw the writing on the wall. It was time to leave my current firm, and looked around and said, I could either take another sales engineering role in the financial services industry, or I could make this big jump to consulting. So I made that big jump to consulting. Decided to kind of try something completely new. It was my first work from home role, working virtually from Indy for the Louisville-based firm, and started to handle all aspects of Salesforce projects. So we were small enough where, I would be a project manager, I would be a business analyst, I would do all the configuration, and then finish up with the training as well. So I really liked the ability to dive in and learn new things about different industries and different companies, while also still learning Salesforce myself. I mean, I'd been doing it for a couple years at that point, but obviously, when you move from being an internal product owner to being a consultant, there's obviously new things that you see each and every project. So from there, about 8 or 9 months into that stint at InfoWelders, got a call from the CEO and said, "Hey, what do you know about this company called Aperio? We're going to be acquired." So that was my jump into what I'll call big boy consulting, or kind of an enterprise level consulting. Was able to join as a business analyst consultant, and then a couple years after that, Aperio decided to open an office in Indianapolis. So, moved into a number of different roles through my, almost 8 years at Aperio.
That's an amazing story, and that's where I met you. I
Yeah.
remember. I'm trying to think back on my Aperio history. Was InfoWelders Aperio's first acquisition?
So there were three acquisitions announced at that same time,
Okay.
and I believe it was those three were the first that Aperio had done.
Yeah.
was Eric Brinfald. What was his name? And then Glenna Clausen's group, and then
Yes.
InfoWelders all at the same time. Yeah.
My gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember InfoWelders, just an incredibly talented team for its size.
My gosh, we were, yeah, I was so lucky to be able to work with and learn from some of those folks. I mean, the big reason I went to 10K was to follow Nick Ham. Obviously, a couple of other folks that left Aperio soon after, mostly because they didn't want to travel quite as much, wanted to stay a little bit closer to home. But yeah, I mean, pretty great group of folks. For I think we were 10 full-time employees at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned how you became a admin kind of accidentally. I think there's a lot of people that kind of fall into it because someone left, right? At what point did you become an MVP, and how did you become an MVP?
Yeah, so kind of a roundabout story there as well. You know, as I was learning what Salesforce was at this firm, I went out to Twitter and I said, hey, I own the Salesforce thing. What do I do? And I found folks like Aperio John and Nick Panter and a number of other folks that still connected with today. But the other thing that turned me on to was the idea of user groups. So quickly joined the Indianapolis user group that was focused on Salesforce, primarily admin level folks, really joined and jumped in there. At the time, I think they were kind of shying away from having folks that worked at partners lead those groups. But over time, that rule or process changed. And so I took over leadership of that group in like 2012, 2013. And a couple years after that was recognized as one of the first Salesforce MVPs from Indiana. I don't know if I was the first. There's a couple other kind of one up around Chicago, one in Evansville, but there's still a couple of us here, MVPs in Indiana.
Let me ask you about Indianapolis. It seems kind of like a Salesforce capital in a way, the Midwest capital of, like, my current employer, Atrium, has opened an office. Guess where they opened it? Indianapolis. Aperio, of course, went hard in Indianapolis. And what is it about Indianapolis? Is it I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. You know, the story we always told at Aperio was, you know, we looked around 5 or 6 different near shore cities on where to locate a US based delivery center and really training center is what it turned out to be. Landed in Indianapolis for a number of reasons. We had infrastructure from a leadership perspective. We had one of our delivery managers and also a senior project manager based here, as well as one of our more senior technical architects that could help with training folks. Obviously, working with the state was a big piece for both tax incentives and training grants. And then really it came down to the ability to find talent. And Indiana has, as you're well aware, a great number of higher ed institutions that turn out some really great folks. So I think it's a combination of things.
Yeah. It's kind of a fortuitous thing. Also, Marketing Cloud, I think.
Well, yeah. So I joke, you know, as our user group grew over the years, you know, folks that were leading groups other places asked me, you know, how do you get your group to grow? And I said, get Salesforce to buy the largest technology company in your city, and your user group will grow. So, you know, Salesforce bought ExactTarget, which became Marketing Cloud back in 2013, 2014, and obviously brought a lot more awareness to what Salesforce is. I think Indianapolis is like the 3rd or 4th largest hub for them now. That was second before the Talon, or not Talon, but Tableau and a couple of the other acquisitions. So still largest tech employer in the state of Indiana by far.
Amazing. And people think just corn comes from Indiana.
Right? Yeah, there's more than corn in Indiana at Indiana Beach and other places.
And Larry Bird.
Yeah.
Now you're at 10K Advisors.
Correct.
So what do you do there, and what does 10K Advisors do?
Yeah, so my role is Chief Customer Officer, and that really boils down to customer success. I make sure that our projects are running smoothly. Our model is a little bit different than traditional consulting companies in that we're a network of independent contractors, small consulting companies, really focused on difficult technical problems and on-demand talent. So, we started really as a way for US based partners and direct customers of Salesforce to better utilize India-based resources. And a couple of years in, we pivoted and added this US-based network, which has now grown. We've got folks in Australia, the UK, really globally outside of both India and the US. But we're really focused on how do we get on-demand talent and connect those folks with the customers that need that support and help.
Okay. And by on-demand talent, are these people that work for 10K or they are subcontractors?
Everyone is a 1099. It's all a business to business relationship. So we find folks that have 2 or 3 of their own customers, and they may be looking to backfill 5, 10, 15 hours a week. And we can help them find that with our customers. We have a plethora of folks that just need, hey, I need 5 hours of a technical architect. They don't want to hire somebody full time, but could, really use some help with this specific integration or this very hard technical problem. We also focus around some of the other harder to find skill sets, things like field service lightning, Salesforce CPQ, folks that might have a little bit of a specialized skill set where they can spread a little bit thinner than being full-time at one organization, either from a consulting perspective or at a direct customer of Salesforce.
Right. So who are your typical customers?
It varies. We work with enterprise level software firms, enterprise level professional services companies, and then we also work with startups, folks that are just getting going on the platform, as well as some small nonprofits. Our sweet spot, I would say, is kind of the growth business to mid-market to general business at Salesforce. So kind of the 500 to 5,000 employees. Typically, those folks have advanced enough Salesforce instances, or at least plans and needs for that level of technical support, and also the budget to support our rates. We're not the cheapest. Most of our experts have been in the industry 5, 10, 15 years. We definitely believe in training the next group of folks to come into consulting, but a majority of our experts are folks that have been doing Salesforce for a long time.
So these aren't people that just go on Trailhead and
right.
just learn something. Not that there's anything wrong with Trailhead.
No,
but
not at all. It's a great tool, but sometimes customers need a little bit more experience, and that's what we can provide.
Well, there's learning how to configure things, and then there's learning what to do when, right? And having that wisdom, which is what you pay consultants for, right?
Exactly. I at the end of my Aperio stint, I ran our college and campus recruiting program. And that's what we found was the most difficult to kind of get through to the new recruits. Was we can teach the Salesforce thing, we can teach this technology thing, we can teach them how to write code. How do we teach them how to be good consultants, respond to the customer in ways that are, hey, you can say, I don't know, but do you say it that way? Or do you say it, let me check and get back to you? Right. So, we found that those folks were really good on their second projects. Their first projects were a little rough because oftentimes they didn't have the support of somebody like a John Gorp or a Mike Martin to support them in that project.
Yeah, right. And there's some features of Salesforce I think newbies go crazy with, right? Like record types. You'll go see an org and there'll be like 30 record types.
Yeah. Hey, this is a great feature. We should do it everywhere. Well, wait a second. You might want to think about that first.
Yeah.
Person accounts, right?
Yes. Oh, person. Yeah, that's wonderful. You threw me for the loop there. I saw that 10K Advisors puts out a document, if you want to call it that, called the Salesforce Talent Ecosystem Report. Sounds really interesting. What are some of the highlights, do you think, of the?
Yeah, so it's been a fun project that we work on every year. Really focused around what does the talent ecosystem look like specific to Salesforce. We found, just this last year that demand for Salesforce talent, we really look at four key roles: consultants, admins, developers, and architects, grew over 360% from 2020 to 2021. So that's the demand, the need. And we found the supply globally increased about 20%. So there is a giant gap in need for these roles and not as many of those people to do that work. So, you could probably see it in talking to your customers and in talking to folks in the ecosystem. It's really easy to find another Salesforce job if you want it right now, because nobody can find enough folks.
I should probably ask for a raise then, right?
Right? Shouldn't we all?
Yeah. It's one. This might be harder to quantify, but do you have any thoughts on the quality of the talent? I mean, we know that demand is there. One thing I worry about is kind of what we were talking about in knowing what to do when, and that has the potential for kind of souring the ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or souring the customers, right? If they start getting bad advice on how to configure this.
Yeah, I would say it's hard to quantify. I mean, anecdotally, in my experience, what I've seen is, there's a lot of folks that, have an admin cert, that have finished a bunch of trailheads, and are looking for a job. And there are some of those types of roles available.
Right.
What I'm also seeing is there's some incredible programs out there run by folks like Salesforce directly, Pep Up Tech, VetForce, Salesforce Military, that are, a little bit more exclusive in who they let into those programs, so they can help, kind of pair up the right background with the technology skills. It goes back to what we talked about before with, teaching consulting skills, soft skills versus the technology piece. I think those programs are bringing a lot of great folks into the ecosystem that have transferable skills into the Salesforce work that they're going to be doing.
Right. That's very good. So one thing I talk to a lot of people about in consulting is that the consulting business really isn't that interesting, right? There's not a lot of innovation, and I think Aperio, to its credit, has really tried, with stuff like crowdsourcing, but basically you have offshoring and you have managed services. Do you see any innovation happening in the consulting space, and what do you think is exciting in the consulting world right now?
Yeah, I think there's some opportunities. There's a lot of groups out there like the Upworks and the other programs that are trying to connect what some would call freelancers to customers. I think there's some inherent problems in those types of programs. In that, again, it goes back to how do you vet the talent and make sure that the folks that are taking your projects are really capable of completing them. But I think there is a ton of opportunity to find ways to automate connecting the customer with the expert. We've tried some things at 10K. We launched a product called 10K Task, where you go fill out a set amount of information about a piece of automation that you'd like to implement or a new user interface. We then connect to your Salesforce org. We're able to do a little bit of review on the back end, kind of understand what your existing setup looks like, so we can accurately estimate and then deliver it asynchronously through that platform. So I think there is some opportunity for those types of innovations in the space. I think it takes taking a step back and learning that it's going to cost to do that. And I know there's a number of consulting firms that are taking that approach as well, and figuring out other ways to connect customers with the work that needs done.
Right. Thinking back to when InfoWelders got bought by Aperio, it was kind of an exciting time in the ecosystem, right? There was Aperio, there was Blue Wolf doing some really interesting stuff, Cloud Sherpas. They did some really cool stuff with Google. Who are the exciting firms now that you see in the system?
Yeah, looking out, I see folks like Zenify that are focused on very specific industry solutions, building strong teams, pairing that with innovations. The team at Traction on Demand is obviously growing like crazy and doing really good work as a certified B Corp, as well as both commercial and nonprofit sector. I like firms like Atrium. I'll speak to it. I think you guys are doing great things with integrating artificial intelligence into kind of the traditional services firm and expanding beyond just core Salesforce. Those are some of the places that I look when I'm looking to see what's going on out in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's a different era, right? And you have the big firms, right? Deloitte and Accenture. It's almost hard to fathom how big they are,
right,
in the system, right? And what kind of work they do. One thing that your website mentions is that there's 1,800, and it might be updated, 1,800 firms in the ecosystem, many with 10 or fewer certified. Do you think this is a good thing, or is it a challenge?
Honestly, it's great for us because those folks both make great partners as well as great customers as well as experts for us.
Yeah.
I think there is a push in the ecosystem from Salesforce directly to recruit new partners that have very specialized industry expertise, bring them in, teach them Salesforce. We at 10K have worked with a couple of those partners as well in helping them find the right Salesforce folks to kind of help bolster that experience. And then, there's a ton of folks like yourself, like myself, like Nick, that have decided, hey, I want to do this on my own. I've done Salesforce for 10 or 15 years. And they start firms. And, I was listening to the podcast with Genevieve. I didn't realize she had 5 people working for her. I mean, that's a great story focused on, one specific region and kind of a set type of customer. Those stories exist all over the world. And I think it's good for the ecosystem. I will say what we found in those numbers as well, though, that I think it was like 70 to 80% of the certifications still live at the big guys. Right. Yeah. They're not kind of trickling down. And we see that with some of the specialized skill sets as well. A lot of folks want to do velocity and come to us for velocity, and well, we've got a handful of folks that do that, but Salesforce is really focusing on enabling those folks at the top end of the market.
Right. It is a really interesting time. As the technology changes too, right? I think the invention of lightning kind of disturbed things, right? It made consulting, maybe this is just my point of view, it made consulting a little bit more challenging while there was a crunch on talent.
Is that no, I absolutely agree. I mean, hey, this thing is bright and new. It's all that Salesforce is talking about. We've got to go there. Well, we can't quite go there for XYZ reason, right? I think we're finally there, almost 7 years later, where I would be, I do occasionally run across somebody that's still on Classic, but in general, most folks have finally made the transition and have been able to be successful there.
And maybe the new lightning is Flow, right?
Well, that is what I'm reading on Twitter these days. It's all about replacing replacing workflow and process builder with good old Flow.
And it seems like old school developers are like, no, I like Apex, right? Because they could do the stuff, which is way advanced. And but you kind of see if you can visually do code at some point, drag and drop. That's what the dream is, right? You're making it a little easier and maybe solving the talent problem a little bit.
Absolutely. I think there's something to that, John.
I don't know. So what else is going on in your life? You've got beer and Legos. Like, what is the deal with Legos? When did you get into Legos? And
beer and Lego? Yeah. So, I've always had, I've always enjoyed playing with Lego. We grew up, only child. It was great to spend my time building. I think I got my first set of Duplos from a garage sale back when I was 5 or 6 and really never looked back. It was great before we had kids, having double income, able to kind of grow my collection a little bit after my wife and I got married. And then now having 2 boys, 8 and 10, as I sit here in my office, which is the Lego room, we are very much a Lego family. So involved in the Lego user group. There's a user group program for Lego. Here in Indianapolis and globally. So that's been a fun thing to do with the boys. And we presented at a couple of Lego shows here in Indy. So, we're all in on Lego. It's a great family activity.
Amazing. Well, This podcast will be coming out in February.
Okay.
Who do you think I should talk to next?
Ooh, who should you talk to next? I'll be a little. I'll stay in house. I don't know if you've reached out to Matt Lamb. Matt Lamb would be great. He's our CTO at 10K, but also has some of his own customers and is a great technical mind. SFDC Matt on Twitter. I know he's not quite as active anymore. Some other folks, talking about flow. I think you should talk to Andy Utkin. I don't know if you know Andy at all out of Florida.
Just from the internet.
Really great guy. I met him at Florida Dreaming a couple years ago, where he did a presentation about one of his customers. He's one of the independent partners and has done some really cool things, and obviously focused very, very heavily on flow these days.
Very good, very good. Yeah, Matt Lamb and Nick Ham. I was always thinking Lamb and Ham.
I love it. Well, there's a reason I went to 10K. Good folks here.
Yes. Well, Mike Martin, I can't thank you enough. You are a hero of mine. You are a legend.
Likewise, John. I think fondly of our times at Aperio and our times at Dreamforce, enjoying breakfast and other things. So it's great to reconnect, and I love the podcast. It's exciting to hear from all these great folks in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Captain. I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. See you, John.
Take
care.
Bye.